Timeless Strategies. Insights from veteran and emerging CEOs and investors.
Good morning. Happy you guys have joined us today. So the title of our panel is Timeless Strategies, Insights from Veteran and Emerging CEOs. So bottom line is, we're going to hear all the real stuff and the ins and outs of what it takes to succeed and what it takes to prevail and excel in 2024 in our current macroeconomic, political, geopolitical, whatever system. So perhaps we're going to start with a short intro by everybody. And if you can make it a bit personal, not just hard core stuff, but a bit about yourself, 2 words about personality, and maybe that will also help in understanding, how people really succeed these days. So, Luisa, perhaps we start with you and then move on.
Yes, very nice to be here. Hello, everyone. So I'm Luisa Dobre. I'm CEO and founder of Comet Health. We are a company based in Zurich. And my journey, probably it's similar and different than many others. I don't come from healthcare. I have a business background. And 7-8 years ago, I decided to enter healthcare. And I started from the patient side. I had a lot of frustrating experience as a patient, and I realized there is a lot of opportunity to make an impact. And I realized that inefficient communication in healthcare is actually the 3rd leading cause of death after heart disease and cancer. And I was shocked. I found some numbers in US, 250,000 people to 400,000 people dying every year because of this reason. In Switzerland, 3,500, but it's a little tiny country. And I decided, let's dive deep and understand why that happens, and maybe we find a solution for that. So fast forward, we develop a communication collaboration platform, purposely built for healthcare organizations to help doctors, nurses to have the information that they need when they need it, pushing information from any other legacy system, being nurse call, electronic medical record, and so on, and help them be more efficient and ultimately really providing a better care, safer care. In the first 3 years of building the company, I probably spent half of my time on a hospital floor to understand how they work. And I think this was also the key success factor in building our company, to really solve the problem first before really super designing a solution.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So on to you, Lucas.
Lucas Rzeczkowski. So I'm currently founder of Longevity, which is a drug discovery company focused on longevity. This is actually my second startup. So previously I was a founder of a company called Trusted Doctor. We started off as a telemedicine platform for oncology, and then eventually we turned this into a cancer insurance business. And we're covering around 5 million people in 40 countries. And so it's kind of interesting how you have to always find the right payer. And I'm also fortunate because when I sold my first company to private equity in 2022, I decided to do angel investing. So I'm an active investor in MedTech and digital health. So I'm kind of on both sides, seeing the new innovation, but also as a founder, I think that makes me help to understand founders. And maybe just to say, the first business was driven at the back of the real cancer story. And obviously now in longevity, I'm looking at multifactorial diseases. This is kind of my take on prevention. How do we design the platform for quicker drug discovery, and also how we impact a larger population. So obviously grateful to be here and interested in the discussion.
Thanks, Lucas. Over to you, Marius, please.
Oh, I'm Marius. I'm electronic engineer and computer scientist by education. I'm MedTech product development manager by last 10 years of experience. Right now, I'm acting as a CEO at Consonance. So we are a one-stop medical device development company. We are help, and we keep under one roof the manufacturing capabilities, design and development capabilities, and regulatory support capabilities for mostly startups, companies that want to develop and introduce into the market medical devices. So more personally, from me, I never wanted to go like by education, by my studies into the MedTech. It was like some discovery during my work at the university that MedTech is super interesting for engineers. So super wide. We have all kind of devices, big as a room or even building, or small as a like coin to put into the human. So for me, it's like engineering and MedTech.
Thanks, Marius. That's very interesting. And we'll get back to that. And Greg, please.
Perfect, thank you. So great to see you all. For me, I started into this route chasing technology. So I grew up, went to uni at the time during the Human Genome Project and all of those, and sequencing was something that was super interesting to me, understanding genomics and sequencing. And for me, I wanted to merge technology, hardware with biology. That took quite a while. And I think that's one thing we'll touch on is timing and how long things take. But I have always, throughout my career, chased technology, and that's led me to do a lot of interesting things. My first patent was in women's health area. And then I was able to join a startup as the first employee and embraced by the founders and had the first exit very young in my career. And that, of course, then led to other opportunities in large and small companies, an IPO in diagnostics, and then the rest of my career, up until most recently, has been in digital health on the software and the hardware side. So having just left as Chief Marketing Officer, the other CMO of Olympus's digital health division, I'm now an angel investor and advising in women's longevity.
Thanks, Greg. So basically, we have over here a very interesting spectrum and combination of individuals finding themselves or making the way towards CEO. I'm going to try and ask sort of a trivial question, but really, given your different backgrounds and your different life experiences, the idea is how can really one succeed? Because bottom line is most companies fail, most startups do not succeed, and we'll start maybe with you, Lucas, given your sort of serial position, in looking back, what would you identify sort of as 2 or 3 maybe key traits or key success factors which really can enable a CEO to succeed and for the company to succeed? Please.
Thank you. It's a really important question. I think, first of all, you have to love what you do. You have to be absolutely relentless because the journey is pretty dire. It's ups and downs. So I think you have to be really, really driven. I think it always starts and finishes with people. You have to have the right people around you. So first of all, as a leader, you have to choose the right people, whether it is your co-founders or your investors. I mean, it's all about people because the business will change. The business model will pivot, but the people are the main thing. What else? I think you have to. Yeah, I mean, Greg talked on the timing, and there has to be. You have to be nimble. You have to pivot. So the timing of your business is very, very important. But I'll let everyone else to kind of pitch in, maybe.
Maybe Louisa, sort of a different perspective, your perspective, given the different journey.
I fully agree with Lucas. I guess it's critical. People, everything starts with people. I think 90% of startups fail, and I think 90% of the startups who fail, they fail because the founders fail. It's very hard to build a business. It's very difficult, and I think resilience is probably the key DNA trait that a founder has to have. I always said that founders have to have 3 Ps. Persistence, patience, and passion and persistence and patience. And I found myself, I have a lot of passion for what I do. I think this is very clear. A lot of persistence. I never thought that I have the persistence that I have. And I learned to be patient because when you're in healthcare, there is no other way. It takes long, first of all, to develop the product, and then selling. I'm selling to hospitals, a very long journey. And I think that's so important to love what you do. We were talking yesterday about yeah, how do you balance life and work as a founder? How do you make it that you still enjoy life? And I think you can enjoy the life when you only love what you do, because work and private life merge together. So it's very important to do that. And of course, another thing which I think is very important, many founders fall in love with their solution, and they should fall in love with the problem, because in the moment you are in love with the problem you are solving, then you will more likely be very agile to find different solutions that can have a fit in the market.
Thank you. I think those are really very valid points, the human factor and the passion, and of course, not to fall in love with your solution, but rather with the problem. Thank you. Maybe the engineer perspective.
Yeah, so simple engineer here. So I would say everything is right, so resiliency definitely, but I think the first thing is to understand what is the startup. Startup is a like enterprise to bring the product to the market. So knowledge about market, knowledge about product, knowledge about your business, this is one thing, super important and obvious to be true. But the second thing is understanding that startups always has two products, because the startup itself is a product as well. So the startup needs to be marketed to investors, needs to be sold to investors. So there are always two products. Building one product to the market is super hard, and startups needs to build and bring two products. So focusing on these two markets is necessary.
Very interesting, really. I mean, that's something to think about. Thank you. Greg, your perspective?
Yeah, I would add just one thing that I think is absolutely critical is the customer. Having all of these things in mind at the end of the day, if you don't have the customer in mind every second of the day, then you won't be successful. You can build the best product, you can have the best team, but if you aren't embedded with the customer, it's extremely difficult to commercialize it. And I've had some successes and some failures, as I think everyone on this stage has, in terms of commercializing product. And if there's one thing that I would take away from all of that, it's get to the customer early and often, and then again and again and again. You can't develop in a vacuum. You can't engineer in a vacuum. Otherwise, it'll take a lot longer, like Luisa said, or you won't be successful finding that product market fit, and you won't be able to pivot, like Luisa said.
Great, thank you, Greg. So, but by the way, what I'm sure you guys understand or take away from this first question is there is no right and wrong. I mean, I think each and every one of us in this room, in this conference, finds her or his direction and anchor point, because they're all right, and I'm sure there are additional 20 right answers, but I guess it needs to work for you. And you need to find your path, your direction, your anchor points, your assets, etc. So, and again, thanks guys for sharing these different insights. So that's on the one hand. However, as you mentioned, as we're aware of, companies make mistakes, people make mistakes, and it's not always a clear ride. So perhaps looking at the other side of lessons learned. I mean, and again, there are many along the road, and it's a long time. But maybe this time, starting with you, Greg, 2, 3 really strong lessons that you take with you as you go forward, which you want to share with the people.
Yeah, I think for me it goes back to the people, and I think one of the hardest lessons and one of the hardest decisions is when you have someone on your team that's just not a fit, is waiting too long to make that change. It's probably one of the most difficult things you do as a founder or as an investor if it's an investment. But if there's not a fit, then there needs to be change. And gauging that fit ahead of time is also extremely difficult. So understanding how resilient someone will be when you're down in the trenches together is not always easy. And so as soon as those cracks start to appear, change has to happen, whether that's very direct conversations with the person or people that you have that disconnect with, or it's making the change in the role itself and bringing someone else in.
Thanks, Greg. Marius, any structured process you can share, or again, a personal perspective?
So from the structure, I think that startup and every enterprise evolving a product has at least two phases. So especially when we talk about hardware, regulated market, and innovative products. So development and then operation. And I think the very hard and tough to understand is that operation starts later. So operational process, building marketing, sales, having constant payroll of people, it's later. So I see, especially because of the investors' relationships and showing how fast, how close we are to the market, that people are starting to operate too soon. They should focus on the development. And the development is totally different. It is project-based activity. So there are only two paces, either 0% or 100%. And operation, it's always going forward. So I think that being in your place, understanding your place, it's most important stuff.
Cool. I'm going to challenge you on the spot, but if you feel comfortable.
Sure.
Engineers are always trying to improve and, to maximize. Is there a good enough, or is there, never a good enough? It has to be perfect.
So from my perspective, it's good enough always. It is the best. So because as an engineer, I want, it was my career, but as a product manager and somebody who is setting up this strategy, good enough in every possible way is good enough. And the most important thing is as fast as possible, because failures obviously will happen. If we do something as fast as possible with whole resources we have, we still may have time to fix the mistake. But if we try to have multiple ways, do in parallel, save money, then we'll probably lose time to save if we make some mistake. So good enough is always the best.
Thank you. I think that's important. Luisa,
yeah, I would agree with that. Good enough. It's especially when you develop a product. It's absolutely true. I would just add to what was said. I think, for me, it's very important as a founder to start with the end in mind. Because in the moment you really know why you are doing what you're doing, and you know kind of what is your goal actually with this company, with building this company, then it's much easier to think backwards and think, okay, what milestones or what things I have to achieve that goal, what type of people I have to surround myself with, what things I have to do, which countries I have to go, and so on and so forth. And I think that's very important, and I think this applies for building a company, but also building a life. And go a bit more deep into that, I think I always advise early stage founders to always focus, again, on the problem that they are solving, because then you can be really agile. Agility is very, very important when building a company. And the second thing that I always advise, and I think is very important, how do you manage your cash flow? No money, no honey. So company's gone. So I think it's a topic we as founders have to be very mindful of, and think, how can we make that happen, and what type of resources are on the market, bootstrapping, VCs, angels, loans, whatever that takes. But we have to also, especially moments of crisis, be innovative in a way how we think about ensuring that cash flow happens. And I think I say you should always plan for the worst when raising money. So raise 1.5 to 2 times more than what you think you need, because it always takes longer. That was probably one of the things I was told when I started my company. It always takes longer, but I didn't understand what it means. And I think it's very, very important. Don't get greedy to keep a lot of shares at the beginning. I think, it's good to have a small part of a big pie than a big part of a small cake.
Thank you. Lucas, you want to add something?
Not a lot to add, but I will refer to some of the comments. So very, very quickly. So first lesson, find your payer. So going back to the customer. Who's the customer, but actually who is the payer? And I've learned this the hard way. We started off with selling to patients and doctors, not realizing the insurance was our payer, and this is important to realize. Secondly, talking about the people, focus on A players, not B players, because they're cheaper. I think this is like super important, and again, it will bite everyone is sort of in the long run. What else? Talking about the shares, I think we had this really interesting discussion yesterday, and that's kind of where the Europe and US differs a lot. Give your people options. So, if you've got a great team, give everyone a piece of the business, because when you succeed, and I've seen this when we had an exit, everyone got paid and it was beautiful, and also when you share the wealth, obviously talking about the pie, people are motivated to fight for you, and this is really important. So, but that's the main things. Oh, and the last point about the good enough, I agree with that. When it comes to the finding product market fit and the early development, but when you found that fit, do not compromise on quality.
Cool, thank you. Guys, last minutes, and maybe just bullet points. As a CEO, managing company, managing operation, there are ample, hundreds of resources you require, but trying to pinpoint 2, 3 key assets, key resources you really need as a CEO, and don't tell me money. I mean, that's obvious, but in addition to financial resources, what are 2, 3 key resources that a CEO really needs to have with him and embrace and make sure he has on board? Whoever wants to take it first.
Just very quickly, nice advisory board, and actually having a board, even early stage. When you start, we've succeeded because we had an exceptional board that really helped us later on. So that would be my
board. Great, thank you.
I would fully agree. It's all about people, right? And I think the other thing is not something physical things to have, but it's something you should have as a founder: focus. It's so easy to get distracted. I think in my half a time that I spent in hospital in the first 3 years of building this company, I could build 40 companies based on all the things I've learned. The thing is, you have to be narrow focused on what problem are you solving, and once you do that, you can be innovative and think about something else. But I think focus is key.
Great, thank you.
So I would go with knowledge, and knowledge especially concerning people and board. So I think the most of CEOs missing in the early days, especially when they are first in this position, to understand how this market operates, who are investors. And it is not a competition to win investor. It is obviously to have investment, but then what happens next? I think there is really abundance of this knowledge. What happens next? So what is really a board? They can help, but they also driving some decisions. They don't want to do this, but they obviously do. So I think the knowledge about how this business works behind the scene.
Cool, great. Greg, want to add?
Yeah, I think it's tying all of these things together. It's building the right culture of your team that actually is working with you, but everyone around you. And I think that's including personal life as well. Make sure you're surrounding yourself with people who will not let you sit in an echo chamber and hear your own thoughts. People who will challenge you in a healthy way and work together with you to overcome your own gaps, both you and those of your team, so that you can fill those gaps and move forward milestone to milestone.
Super important, thank you. Audience, please. You have 3 very different and complementary people. Any key questions, thoughts you want to share?
From the investor side. Yeah, it's so very, very quickly. Don't get emotional about the ideas. Stick to the focus and the substance, because there's that level of loving the story, loving the founders, but also just be diligent. Early stage companies don't really have that many numbers, and it's not so scientific, but still be quite constructive.
Yeah, I think a lot of the comments we made today also apply to investors. Surround yourselves with the right people, make sure that you're checking the technology. I think a lot of times as investors, especially, we've developed expertise And it's easy for us to think, oh, we've learned our way through other areas earlier in our careers, so we can do that with all of these. No, make sure you get experts in to help understand the technology. Make sure you're vetting the people in the right way, not just you, again, echo chamber, but making sure you're seeing lots of different viewpoints and how they would be resilient, like Louisa said.
Great, guys. 9 seconds left, so I guess we're all set. Thank you very much.
Reintroduce yourself.
No, we're good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.